The ghost of Banjo Patterson was heard by the harbour this morning. Prime Minister John Howard unveiled a bronze statue of the Australian icon in Banjo Patterson Park. Although Banjo's best known for his stirring ballad Waltzing Matilda, he was a poet and journalist for more than 50 years. His granddaughter Philippa Harvey joined the PM for the celebrations at Rock End, Banjo's historic former home.
Thanks. Well, a tribute today to a great Australian, the unveiling of a new statue of legendary poet Banjo Patterson.
Visiting his own Sydney electorate, Prime Minister John Howard unveiled the bronze bust of Andrew Barton Patterson outside Rock End Cottage at Gladesville.
The cottage belonged to Banjo's grandmother. He lived there for 15 years from the age of 10, later becoming a lawyer, journalist and bush poet. Among his best-known works, Waltzing Matilda.
Banjo died in 1941. These days the cottage is a restaurant and he'd probably have to smoke his pipe outside.
It's my pleasure to welcome you here today on behalf of the City of Ryde to witness this historic unveiling ceremony. In particular, I welcome you, Prime Minister, and thank you for making time in your very busy schedule, having watched cricket all night, to be here with us today. I also, as I said, welcome Philippa Harvey, the granddaughter of Banjo Patterson, and we're delighted you have found time to be with us too. I thought at the outset I'd briefly touch on some of the history of Rock End Cottage, just to remind us of the significance of this site. There is no precise record of when Rock End was built, but it's believed to have been around 1836. Emily Mary Barton purchased the property in 1866. Emily, of course, was grandmother to Andrew Barton Patterson. It was in 1874, at the age of 10, that Banjo Patterson came to live here with his grandmother while he attended Sydney Grammar School, and he later studied law.
I wish to introduce Murray Harton, who's a bush poet, who will join me in presenting Banjo's story. Andrew Barton Banjo Patterson is internationally renowned for his song and poetry, Waltzing Matilda. What is not widely known is his contribution to the social and cultural structure of our nation as we know it today. In the decades leading to Federation, many significant decisions were made that have had a major effect on the freedom and democracy we have enjoyed during this past century. It is necessary to understand that at the time Banjo began to publish his works in 1886, Australia was a much divided society. Whilst trained in the legal profession, Banjo's passion followed his power of expression where he knew he could make a difference. He published an important political pamphlet, Australia for Australians, when he was just 25 years of age. To illustrate what I've been saying, a few quotes from this publication are relevant.
Our system clearly does not work as it ought. Where we have gone wrong was, firstly, in dealing with our land. When our forefathers arrived here, there was any amount of land, and they started to grant it away wholesale to anyone that liked to take it. And the way in which they granted it was on the English system of what is called fee simple tenure. That is to say that the grantees took the land from the Crown to hold it forever and ever. for themselves, their heirs and their assigns, free of any rent or payment to anyone. No provision was made for the fact that, as population increased, these lands would become more and more valuable.
But it would be remiss if we did not comment on Banjo's great sense of humour and the poetry he wrote especially for children. His children's series entitled The Animals Noah Forgot described our unique native bird and animal life as Banjo began to mature and be more reflective on his work. We searched for a piece that related to his days here at Rock End. It is titled A Dog's Mistake.
He had drifted in among us as a straw drifts with the tide. He was just a wandering mongrel from the weary world outside. He was not aristocratic, being mostly ribs and hair, with a hint of spaniel parents and a touch of native bear. He was very poor and humble and content with what he got, so we fed him bones and biscuits till he heartened up a lot. Then he growled and grew aggressive, treating orders with disdain, till at last he bit the butcher, which would argue want of brain. Now the butcher, noble fellow, was a sport beyond belief, and instead of bringing actions, he brought half a shin of beef, which he handed out to Fido, who received it as a right, and removed it to the garden where he buried it at night. 'Twas the means of his undoing for my wife, who'd stood his friend, to adopt a slang expression, went in off the deepest end. For among the pinks and pansies, the gloxinias and the gorse, he made an excavation like a graveyard for a horse. Then we held a consultation which decided on his fate. 'Twas in anger, more than sorrow, that we led him to the gate. And we handed him the beef bone as provision for the day. Then we opened wide the portal and we told him, on your way.
Our decision to honour Banjo is one we believe he richly deserves, and the inspiration for the fine bronze statue we are now to unveil came from his reflective era. The sculptor Anthony Chandler was inspired by the importance and privilege of casting a work on such a significant Australian, and he spent many months on ensuring that it formed his understanding of the man's personalities and qualities. It shows Banjo in an era when he is reflecting on his life and what he was thinking about in his last published request. I now call on the Prime Minister, on behalf of all Australians, to unveil his statue and to pay Banjo the respect he richly deserves. Mr. Prime Minister.
So I do feel a special, in all sorts of ways, a special identification with this place, but it is a lovely part of Sydney, and it's a quiet, peaceful, warming reminder of the life of somebody who contributed enormously to our understanding of who we are and contributed enormously to the pride we all increasingly feel, whatever our backgrounds, whatever our views on politics or indeed anything else that might on occasions set us apart. It's a reminder of all the great things we have in common as Australians, and his contribution to Australian life was to understand that earlier and better than most, and to express it in a way that reached all Australians, to distill the essence of what made us different from our European forebears, and that is that we're a nation and a group of people who rejected distinctions based on class or position in society, but rather embraced men and women according to their individual worth, their individual sensitivity and their individual compassion. And that is something that Patterson did extremely well, and he expressed it better than most, and we are deeply indebted. We're greatly indebted to Anthony Chandler for the artistic contribution that he's made to this gathering, which I'm about to unveil, but most of all to you, Ross, and to all the other people who've been associated with getting this project up, with the remarkable work done by the late Harry Mitchell and many other people as citizens of Ryde years ago in recognising the historic importance of this. We thank you. We thank you, Mr Mayor, for your contribution as the Mayor of the City of Ryde. And with those words, I have enormous pleasure in unveiling the bronze, unveiling the sculpture, and honouring thereby a great Australian in every sense of that magnificent expression. Thank you.
Ross has always had a passion for the relevance of Banjo Patterson and the creation of the social culture of Australia. I feel privileged to have been able to contribute to this historic event held in his honour. I trust that for a long while to come, people will view the work and have a better understanding of the place banjo holds in the heart of all Australians. Thank you.